Yo, what's going on, guys? Maldiva here, and today we're going to be doing our 9.2.5 demo guide. So this is going to be the list of everything that we're going to go over. I'm going to try to pump it out as fast as possible, sweet and simple, because I don't want this to be 30 minutes. So jumping right into it, we're going to get into our talents. So this build that I am playing, I call it the Big Daddy Zoo build. So we're not focusing on like crazy one-shots. It's going to be mainly the daddy or the tyrant and our pet damage, the doggies. So for the first one, we go Dreadlash. This is going to buff our doggies, and it also makes the doggies AoE. As you can see, it hits all targets within 8 yards. And there's a Conduit that can also proc that too, and it synergizes really well with From the Shadows. So that's why I picked that one. 25, Doom is my favorite. It's a pretty decent, consistent dot, does about like 9% of my damage. Feels really good to press, and I don't feel the need really for Power Siphon or Demonic Calling, because Demonic Calling, we already have Master Summoner, so there's not really any point to that, so that's why I choose Doom. 30, we go Demon Skin, because if you spec in a Dark Pact, your pet's most likely going to die, so that's why I opt in for the Demon Skin. You get the regen on yourself and also your pet, because you don't want him dying. He's very important to keep alive with this build. 35, we go From the Shadows. As I spoke earlier, it synergizes really well with Dreadlash, and this also buffs the damage of a lot of our pets, especially the Big Daddy or the Tyrant. So you're going to want to be speccing into that. I have done builds where I play Vile Fiend. The cool thing about the Vile Fiend is it's Fire School, so it's really nice to get kicks with, but it's pretty useless outside of if you don't use it with the Tyrant. So it's a 45-second cooldown. The Tyrant's like a minute and a half. It doesn't really synergize all that well. It can be pretty awkward sometimes. You're just sitting on a cooldown, so From the Shadows just keeps it nice and simple. For 40, always Mortal Coil. I don't think there's ever a situation that you're going to spec out of that, because you have multiple schools. You'll be able to juke the interrupts pretty well, so you're not going to need the Howl of Terror. It'll be a little overkill. And the coil is really nice for the added single target CC on your go, and also the heal that's on top of that. For 45, I'm doing Grimoire Felguard, because this is really nice on your opening burst. You get 2 stuns. It's really good for peels. You get the damage. And if you want to buff this guy with the daddy, it's going to be huge. I have done builds that I've played Soul Conduit, and it's pretty nice. I did like it, but I felt that I had too many demonic core procs, so it was really messing up my play, and that's why I spec'd out of it. I spec'd in a build that was giving me a ton of core procs because it felt really good, but then I'm like, you know what? I can sacrifice a little bit to add more damage in, so that's why I went for the Grimoire Felguard. But you could mess around with the Soul Conduit, maybe even do an Implosion build if you choose to. And then for the last one, the Demonic Consumption is the big icing on the cake. This is what you need to buff the Big Daddy. As you can see, he sucks the health from all of your pets. So Stamina is going to buff the Daddy. His damage is dependent on how much health we have and our pets. The pets are going to take health from us, so, and also how many pets. So health and the amount of pets. That's what we got to remember with Demonic Consumption. And then moving on to the PvP talents. So we have 2 talents that are pretty much default loadout that you cannot switch out of. That'll be Call Fellhunter. Unless you're doing 2s, and I guess there's nothing in a spell lock, then you can spec out of this. But for 3s, you're always going to want that for the spell lock. And Master Summoner, there's pretty much never a situation where you're not going to play Master Summoner. That is like a must have. You need to make the dreads instant. For the third one, I like to play Fell Obelisk. This is really good for your burst and also helps you cast if you're trying to ramp up and get a bunch of pets out. But the big thing of this is to make your dreads attack faster, and also the Big Daddy, the Tyrant. Other options if you weren't going to play that could be Netherward if you're fighting casters. That's really nice. But most of the time, I'm pretty tanky enough. I don't really need the Netherward, so I just go opt in for the Fell Obelisk, so I have the extra damage on my goes. And now moving on to our Conduits. So as you can see, I'm playing Naya. The reason for playing Naya and Night Fae is because we have the Grove. This increases our mastery and our max health when we soul rot. And as I said earlier, our health determines the damage of the daddy. So this is very, very crucial for the Big Daddy go. And also mastery is a direct buff to pet damage. So we have buffing the daddy and also buffing our other pets, because the dreads do a lot of damage in this build that we're playing. But starting off with the Conduits, I have Tyrant Soul. So I was experimenting with Born of Blood instead of Tyrant Soul, and it was giving me a lot of demonic core procs, but I felt like I had too many. And when I'm trying to rotate fears in, I was just sitting there holding on my demonic core procs. Even if I'm not playing it, I was just sitting on too many. So I opt to not play it. Get the Tyrant Soul. After the Big Daddy, you're going to have a huge increase on your pets for 15 seconds after the initial 15% increase from the Tyrant. So this is like massive, massive. The only bad thing is that it can be spell stolen. For Finesse, always just do the Fear one just so it doesn't break on damage. You'll have random damage that could potentially break your Fear. You definitely don't want those breaking. You want them to sit as long as possible. Resolute. This is going to reduce the cooldown of your wall. Pretty standard, basic if you're not playing Affliction for the accrued vitality. The other options are really bad, so this is the best option out of that. And then the next potency, we're going Carnivorous because the Dreads do a crap ton of damage. And there's going to be 3 of them because of the 2 set. So you definitely want this. And when they trigger that attack, it will also put up From the Shadows. So you'll know when it triggers because you'll see the From the Shadows, and it can cleave because of this. So it's synergizing with 2 talents. If the team is stacking up, they're going to get cleaved, and that debuff is going to go on all of them that get hit by it. And lastly, for our potency conduit, we're going to go Fel Commando. This just buffs the Felguard damage. The Felguard damage is kind of like doesn't really matter, but the big part is the damage reduction. You need your pet to stay alive because that's your main stun and your Mortal Strike plus Soul Link. So Soul Link's going to split the damage 20% from you to your pet, which makes us tanky, and that's why everybody's playing Demo now over the other specs that just lost Demon Armor. So Fel Commando is a must-have, and also Fel Celerity is going to reduce the cooldown of Fel Domination. If your pet dies, you need to reduce that cooldown so you can insta-summon your pet. Makes it under a 2-minute cooldown. So that's pretty crucial. And that is all for the soul binds. So next, we'll swap it up. I'll actually do opener later. Let's go over our gear and legendary. So for my gearing, I'm playing the Grim Inquisitor legendary. So I have it on the bracers. This is going to buff the doggies. This is why it's called the doggy build. So every shard spent on Hand of Gul'dan increases the damage of this, and it stacks up to 30 times. So it just helps our damage be really consistent, because over time, if you look at your damage breakdowns, your Dread Bite is going to be huge. So you definitely want to be buffing them and playing that. And then Unity, I just put Unity on my neck. I socket for haste. I just love haste. It helps me pull out all my pets, and they attack faster, so it's a really good stat to have. And then all my other stats that I go for are versatility. So it's mainly just focusing on haste verse on everything, as you can see. You want to have the speed increase by 13 for each gem in one of your gem slots, and then a 5% move speed gem to put you up to 15% move speed so you can kite, melee, and everything. Those are like must-haves. And then just 4-piece without the gloves. 4-piece for Demo. You can opt to play for 2-piece. I was experimenting with it a little bit, but the 4-piece is pretty sick. Because if you summon that Malicious Imp, if you implode, it can do really big damage. And then just the standard enchants. We got the Cloak enchant, the Minor Speed to add on top of that. Primary stats on chest. 15 intellect on the bracers. Celestial Guidance on weapon. Ring enchants, we just go haste. And I'm playing Medallion and Insignia most games. I don't really swap them out too much. This is the Medallion because of the other trinket that just got nerfed. And now we'll do our opener. So my basic opener in 2s and 3s, this is like the opener that I do if I need a emergency get the daddy out as fast as possible, because he either does a ton of damage or maybe he'll be kind of weak, but he scares people away. You want to try to scare the enemy and not let them have them do their go before you. So you need to jump faster than they do. So what I do in my opener typically is I'll start going, I'll get my dreads out immediately, possibly get a doom if they're far away, and then I will drop the Grimoire Felguard stun. I use my other stun to cross, and we pull the daddy out, and then we drop the obelisk. We get the soul route going, so we have the mastery buff, and then I'll just start my normal rotation of just refreshing dooms, dumping shards on Hand of Gul'dans when I have 3, and then always keeping a reserve 2 shards for dogs if you don't have a demonic core proc. And then it's just rinse, repeat, dump shards, use your core procs, never cap on shards. Only Demon Bolt if you have 3 shards or less. You don't really want to do it if you're over 3 shards, because then you're going to overcap and you're not going to get as much benefit from that. So that's kind of the opener that I do to rush it as fast as possible. It's not going to give you the biggest guaranteed daddy, but it's like pretty close in and decent. Now, next, we're going to go over the Big Daddy rotation. So I did my quick opener. That's like a worst case scenario. But now I'm going to go over the Big Daddy rotation if people allow you to free cast and you want to get the biggest off possible. So let's say we have our dooms rolling. We'll have 3 dooms for 3 people in the arena. I'm going to have my doggies. I'm going to doggy right now just to wait for the demonic core procs. And I'm just going to start genning my shards just like I usually do. Dump it on Hand of Gul'dan. Refresh my doom. And there we go. I got my procs. So what we're going to do, we're going to pre-cast Soul Rot. Use the core procs. Hand of Gul'dan. Get 5 shards. We're going to drop the doggies. Stun. You can drop another Hand of Gul'dan if you want. If not, drop the daddy. And then obelisk. And now you have the big damage, the huge daddy rolling out right now. I got a 13k. So we have our army of pets. And then if the enemy is getting low, what you can do is implode your imps. Boom. I think I got a 13k crit right there actually on the big imp. So that is the big daddy opener rotation. And then outside of that, basically what you're doing is just making sure you use your doggies on cooldown. And then just kind of PvEing. If you guys PvE as Demo, you probably know that you just want to keep regenning your shards and spend them, never overcapping, dropping the Hand of Gul'dan with three shards, using the Demon Bolt with the Demonic Core procs when you're 3 shards or less, and then just doggy off cooldown. Same thing, rinse, repeat. I kind of drop the obelisk when I get the doggy out again in between the go, and then I'll also soul rot just so I get that mastery buff rolling. Because you don't have to exactly wait for the next tyrant. It's never going to be perfect. You don't want to really make it perfect. Like, especially in 2s, you kind of want to just keep the damage rolling all the time to keep them scared. So you're going to be like stunning on cooldown, coiling on cooldown to get away from them. So let's talk about kiting now. So kiting is a big thing because you know you have melee, especially like outlaw rogues, fury warriors, demon hunters, and they're pretty hard to get away from. I'm sure a lot of people struggle with it. So we have a couple tools to deal with that. Of course, I can't use my gate here. So we have port, gate, and our Night Fae blink. Those are our tools that we have to get away from them. And also we have crowd control. So you have fear, coil, and stun. And you want to use them in a nice kind of flow. You don't want to waste them. You don't want to overuse them. You don't want to use them in the wrong order. It has to kind of flow nicely. So what I try to do is use the shortest cooldowns first before using the big major ones. So that's like Axe Toss, stunning them, porting, coil, fears, stuff like that. And then you get into the major ones where you do like your Night Fae blink and your gateway. So let's say a warrior's charging up to me and I got to get away from him. I want to make sure I kite him. He's the warrior. You're going to always drop the Axe Toss first. And now what you can do out of the Axe Toss, you could either fear off of the Axe Toss, and then you cast fears 3 times. The warrior's going to Berserker Rage, so then you can coil his Berserker Rage. So now he's getting away. After that, make sure you have a Curse of Exhaustion on him to kite him. And then you can fear him again, DR, since his Berserker Rage is going to fall. Then he's going to charge you or Heroic Leap to you, depending on how much mobility he used to get to you. And then you're just going to port away. And you can kind of hide behind the pillar, wait for him to get there. And then you have another emergency cooldown is your gateway. So your gateway should be near. You don't want to go too far after you port because let's say you go around the pillar and you get caught halfway and then he gets you over there, he stuns you and you're slowed. You can't get back to your gate. And then you might have to use your soul shape to get to your gate, which kind of sucks to have to do. So right after you port, you're going to use the gate, get away, and then you'll save your soul shape to either blink back into your port radius, because at that moment you're going to be too far from your port. So you could either go to the pillar that you gated to and replace your port, or keep the original position and just soul shape back when needed. Don't do it if you don't need to. Like if you can walk back to it, then walk back, but soul shape is the emergency to get back over to your port. And that's like kind of the general way of how I kite. And then you just mix in the other cooldowns that you get. So your Axe Toss is going to come up. You can Axe Toss and then cast Fear. If the kicks are already down, like they don't have any kicks, you can just Fear without Axe Tossing and then save your Axe Toss for your go. And then your Coil's like your emergency if you need to cast or you need to get away, you need the healing, and you don't have the Fear DRs or the Axe Toss. So just chaining those up, using them together, is going to be really, really powerful in your toolkit for kiting. And then lastly, we will go over compositions. So for 2s, the comps that I have done the best with is actually, for double DPS, was Mage Lock. Frost Mage Lock was insane. Like, you could just run in there, drop the daddy as soon as possible, the mage goes into the skeletal ice form, and you will just destroy PvE, stun, coil. Don't let that DPS touch, especially if he's melee. He will literally get kited the whole time. So that's probably one of my favorite comps. If you don't want to play with a DPS, you can play with any healer. Like Holy Priest works really well. The Night Fae Priest synergizes because they can reduce the cooldown on the daddy, and they give you Power Infuse. Power Infuse during the daddy go is massive. That haste on top of dropping the obelisk, it's crazy. So those have been my favorites. It could also work with like pretty much every healer. I've done it with Pally, Mistweaver, even R-Druid, R-Sham, so all of it works. And then in 3s is the same thing. I play Mage Lock and then any healer. Holy Priest seems to be the best, but we've even played it with a Mistweaver. So it's the same concept as in 2s, where you just completely destroy one melee, take them out of the game while crowd controlling the other and the healer, because they're getting spam sheep, spam feared. You're just tunneling one target and making it a 3v1 situation every time, and that's the best way to do it. I don't think I've really experimented with other comps. Oh, I guess I've played Ellie Lock. Ellie Lock was the other really good comp. So Ellie Lock, Holy Priest. Those have been my 2 favorite comps, but I haven't got to try out many others. I'd assume BM Hunter Demo is probably really good. Maybe even as Marks or Survival it could work. And I need to try Death Knight as well, and Holy Death Knight I feel could be really good. So yeah, that's everything, guys. I hope you enjoyed the guide. Please leave a like and comment down below, and if you have any suggestions or anything that you would want to be made in a future video, let me know. I also stream on Twitch every day, so I'll be able to answer any of your questions that you have. You can just drop by. The link will be down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.